Thank you very much for your for your kind introduction. I will only tell you two things. I retired in 2009, and ever
Mhm.
since then, I'm writing very regularly on all aspects of national security in various newspapers. That introduction that you gave, 1,000 articles, was about 6 years back. It is more than 4,000 articles now, but that is
Oh,
not the issue. No, that is not the issue. I did not update my biodata simply because I always believe that a speaker is best recognized by the way he speaks. So you don't worry too much about the biodata. But what I would like to tell you is that I'm an infantry officer. Infantry officer means paidar. I can speak in English, Marathi, Hindi. So there's no problem in switching between the languages. And infantry officers are the ones who are very actively involved in guarding the international border of the LOC oblique LAC. And 95% of the casualties which the Indian Army suffers is suffered by the infantry. So we have lost a lot of boys, and my battalion 7 Maratha. Now, if you ask me where are they now, I can tell you. You can just guess where are they now, right now. Okay, so they are there where they are supposed to be, and they're doing a good job. But I can't talk more about it. मी भरपूर ऍक्शन बघितलेली आहे, भरपूर लढाई केलेली आहे, भरपूर दहशतवादी आम्ही मारलेले आहेत. आणि मी मराठा रेजिमेंटचा असल्यामुळे फ्रॉम महाराष्ट्र, while the officers are from all India, all over. And as far as writing is concerned, more than 11 years plus, I'm writing very regularly. And ever since this standoff in Ladakh, or for that matter, when the corona started, one has become hyperactive on the various social platforms like webinars and Google Meet and 100 different kind of meets, etc., including Facebook Live, etc. So I have almost about 100 more than Facebook Lives, etc. We've spoken on this issue. Okay, so I'll just a very small of thing of what I am doing. I'll now come down to my topic. The topic given to me is this Ladakh standoff since 9th of May. The military aspects of it, that is one part I've been told. And second part that I'm told is talk about the propaganda warfare. Nitin Gokhale was to come and speak to you about propaganda warfare, but last minute he could not come because of problems related to health issues of his neighbors. So I stand in his place for propaganda warfare also. Actually, propaganda warfare is an army subject. Call it propaganda warfare, call it information warfare, call it psychological war, call it disinformation warfare. मराठीमध्ये त्याला म्हणा अपप्रचार युद्ध, दुष्प्रचार युद्ध. That is what you said in the introductory comments. I'll talk about all these issues. So let me start off with military aspects of what is happening in Ladakh ever since ever since the standoff on 9th of May. Okay, so today we are on 27th of June, and you can count that nearly 2 months are going to get over in a short while, and the standoff is still there. I will talk about the military aspect, but let me start off straight away by talking about what happened at Galwan on the night 15th and 16th of June. Okay, now 9th of May, what happened? The Chinese carried out intrusions in 4 places in Ladakh. Galwan is one place. Galwan is a valley, or Galwan is a ridge line also. Then second intrusion was at a place called Pangang, so which is basically a lake. Third intrusion was at a place called Depsang, which is basically a plains area. And they came inside about 2-3 kilometers. Now, what we must understand is, what does intrusion means? What does coming inside means? The border between China and India is not marked on ground. International borders are invariably marked by boundary pillars. That is not the case as far as Indo-China border is concerned. The line, the border is called as LAC, line of actual control. What does it mean? It's a line joining two physical points existing on ground, a mountain peak A to mountain peak B, etc. Okay, but it is not marked on the ground. So as far as the LAC is concerned, there are certain areas which are called as the disputed areas. China says ki LAC towards our side of LAC, that is towards the side of India, some area belongs to them. This they call it as a disputed area, and the line up to which they say that the area belongs to them, that is called as the claim line. Okay, so in between, I think some people are putting on their mics, etc. So I'm sure some people have still to get used to the technology. Technology is a dangerous thing At best of the time, it does something which it's not supposed to do. It doesn't follow logic at times, but we'll manage to do with what we have. Okay, they claim certain areas toward our side of the LOC to be theirs, and similarly we claim that some area toward their side is ours. So now in these 3-4 places that I mentioned, they have come about 2-3 kilometers inside and have come nearly up to their claim line. This claim line area, or call it the disputed area, have become a no man's land over a period of time, and no troops are deployed here. So if somebody comes, there is no way to stop it. One peculiarity of the Indo-China border is that it is not like the Indo-Pakistan border. Indo-Pakistan border, every day it's activated. You fire all kinds of weapons such as rifles and light machine guns and mortars and medium machine guns and artillery fires. You name a weapon and it is fired. It is very, very active. While we are talking right now, as per Indian Standard Time, my watch shows 7:45. Today, at least about 2 lakh army is sitting on the line of control with Pakistan and guarding the border, trying to stop the Pakistani terrorists from coming inside our area of Kashmir. So they're awake, and they'll be awake the whole night. So there you fire all kinds of weapons, but that is not the case as far as Indo-China border is concerned. Indo-China border is guarded by, is controlled by 3 agreements which were signed over a period between 95 to 98. But it is in simple words called as the Peace and Tranquility Agreement. What it simply means is that on this border, even in the disputed areas, even if there's an encroachment, you will not use weapons. So what happens when Chinese come up to their claim line into the no man's land? Then Indian army tries to stop them. How do they stop them? They stop them physically. How do you do it? At times you show banners, you have come into our area, please go back. They show you banners saying, no, this is not your area, this is our area. Okay, then what you do is, if they don't listen, then you start pushing other people back. So whoever is the stronger person pushes the other person back. So at times it results into the fist fight, and the Maratha regiment does a good job as far as boxing and wrestling is concerned. That is the strong part of the Maratha regiment among the games they play. So they do a good job of wrestling with the Chinese soldier, boxing, pushing them away, etc. Okay, so violence does take place there, but it is by fist fights. Okay, this is the kind of violence. And then what happened in Doklam, you're aware that the Chinese came at a place called Trai Junction, which is basically a border, Trai Junction of the border of India, Bhutan and China. There was a standoff. Indian army immediately stopped them. The 2 armies were face to face. And after 72 days of psychological warfare, they tried to put up a lot of pressure on you. They went back. So some experts thought that maybe this is what will happen now also. But this time the Chinese had come with an aggressive design. They were much more aggressive than what they have ever been in the past tension. They were more aggressive. They came with sticks. The sticks had iron nails put on it. They were carrying iron rods in which barbed wire were put on it, so that if you hit somebody else with that, obviously people are going to get injured, that kind of a thing. So when they intruded for the first time on 9th of May, when they came face to face with the Indian patrol, some of the Indian soldiers were injured. But the moment you realize this, then we always follow what is called as the tit for tat tactics, or Marathi madhe jashash tase, and we started giving it back to them whenever we came face to face. But of course, no weapons were used. Now come down straight away to the time of 15th June / 16 June, night 15 and 16 June. What had happened was, after a standoff of nearly 1 month plus, it was decided at the corps commanders level that they will withdraw back from the Galwan Valley. Now, Galwan Chu is basically a river. All of you who know about Ladakh, I'm sure know that Ladakh 6 months in a year is covered with very heavy snow up to 35-40 feet. Some of you, when you come back to India visiting your parents and all, you must visit Ladakh. It's a cold desert, it is better than Alaska, it is better than South Pole, or North Pole. I've not seen both of them. I've seen them only on a YouTube, but it is better than that. Okay, so you must visit Ladakh when it snows very heavily, and you will see, you'll come to a different world altogether. So 35-40 feet of snow. It's only 6 months in a year. What happens is the snow melts, and then the streams start flowing. So Galwan Chu in Ladakh language is a river or a small stream or a small river, and the valley is obviously Galwan Valley. And then there's a ridge line, that is the mountain top, from where the small streams come and join the Galwan thing. So Galwan, they decided that the Chinese will withdraw back. So this is what was to be checked on 15th of June. CO, commanding officer of 16 Bihar regiment consists of troops from Bihar, and the CO went there to check up whether the Chinese had gone back or not. The Chinese had not gone back. It resulted into an argument. Normally, the argument would take place, but it would get resolved at the end of the day, and then again you would agree on something. But this time, what they did was they attacked CO 16 Bihar with iron rods and sticks. It was a plain attempt to murder or murder CO 16 Bihar. Now, CO 16 Bihar, he had about 35-40 people with him. And the moment this murderous attack took place, he was injured grievously and he fell on the ground. Now, the Chinese expected that when you attack the senior-most person on the ground, the other troops with them will run back and the fight will end there. But that is not how the Indian army is made of. Indian soldiers treat their COs like gods or demigods. If you ever misbehave with your God, then God only saved the other party which misbehaved with you. And this is exactly what happened in 16 Bihar. Those 35 people with bare hands attacked the Chinese in a very courageous manner, and they literally thrashed them very badly. But Chinese were ready for it. So they had got a lot of troops hidden behind. So about 200, 300 troops of the Chinese joined the battle, fist-to-fist fight. The Indian reinforcements came from behind. It was Bihar troops. Then it was joined by Ghataks of 3 Punjab and Ghataks of Mahar. Now, word Ghatak, or call it the commando platoon, they also joined the fight. Now, some of you would have seen a movie which came a long time back called Prahar. Nana Patekar had made that movie. It talked about how the Indian Army commandos are trained, and Nana Patekar acts like a Maratha officer, the kind of a regiment that I commanded, and that tell you as to how the commandos function. Now, these are the commandos who carried out an attack, and along with them, you had some artillery regiments. I don't want to name them, but consisting of Sikhs. So you had the Biharis, you had some Marathas there, you had some people from Uttar Pradesh, you had a CO who was a Telugu, who was one of the COs was a Maharashtrian. The commander of 16 Bihar was a Maharashtrian. I don't want to name them. So completely, let's say, mini India was represented there, and this was a battle. How it was fought, I'll just describe to you in 2 minutes. So what I will do very briefly, I will describe the Battle of Galwan to you. Thereafter, I'll come on the military aspects, the remainder military aspects as they're taking place now. Then I will talk about the propaganda war. I will talk a bit about economic war. That's not my subject. One more person has been told to talk about it. But economic war has a lot of bearing with what is happening in Ladakh. And then, of course, I've been told to speak for about 1 hour. I'm sure I'll get an indication that my time is finishing. And then whatever interaction we can do, I'll be ready for that. Okay, so these are the kind of topics that I'm going to cover. Now I will tell you about what happened at Galwan. Galwan was a typical Stone Age fight. There people fought with courage, people fought with bravery, people fought with bare hands. The weapons which the Indian Army was using were the bayonets. Some of you who have, if you've seen a rifle, there's a knife which is put on that. It is called a bayonet. So bayonet fighting is the crudest form of fighting. You just put a bayonet into a stomach of the enemy soldier. That is what was done. The butt, that is the rear portion of the rifle, was used. They used their weapons to crack skulls of the people. They used unarmed combat. They snatched, sticks from the Chinese. They beat them up with their whole sticks. And when was this taking place? This was taking place in a pitch dark night. Pitch dark night. You cannot find out who's who. It was a fight, a bravery at its best, leadership at its best. Indian Army has the tradition of leading from the front. The Indian Army officers lead from the front, and that is how this kind of a bravery takes place. Since most of you are Maharashtrians, I will just quote you an example of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj because some of you would understand it much better. Chhatrapati, when he went to kill Afzal Khan, ते कसे गेले तर ते स्वतः गेले. ते स्वतः का गेले? त्यांच्याकडे अनेक असे अनुयायी होते जे प्रति शिवाजी होते. तानाजी मालुसरे होते, नेताजी पालकर होते, येसाजी कंक होते. त्यांना प्रति शिवाजी म्हटलं जायचं. जर ते आजचे काही जर पॉलिटिकल नेते असते त्यांनी काय केलं असतं? त्यांनी एक पत्र लिहिलं असतं की तानाजी मालुसरे, तुला मी ऑर्डर देतो की उद्या सकाळपर्यंत तू अफजल खानाला मार आणि त्याचा मला कम्प्लिशन रिपोर्ट दे. मी पुरंदर किल्ल्यावरती बसून तुझ्या निरोपाची वाट पाहीन. मला लवकरात लवकर रिपोर्ट दे. पण छत्रपतींनी ते तसं ते केलं नाही. ही वेंट इन टू द बॅटल हिमसेल्फ अँड ही फेस्ड अफजल खान हिमसेल्फ. Why did he do it? Because if you study the psychology of warfare, it says that troops will fight only when the leaders are with them. Then only they will do Mahaparakram. आणि छत्रपती तिथे गेले, त्यांनी अफजल खानाला मारलं आणि इतके जे कमी मराठा सोल्जर्स होते त्यांनी अफजल खानाची एवढी प्रचंड आर्मी त्यांना तिथून पळवून लावलं. So this is called leading from the front, and this is exactly tactics which Indian Army follows. Talking of Maharashtra, in last about 3 years, we have lost so many officers from Maharashtra. We had Colonel Santosh Bhadik leading from the front in a counter-terrorist operation. He was from Satara. Then you had, he was awarded, he was martyred in that fight. 3 terrorists were killed. He was awarded with Sena Medal gallantry later. Then you had Major Kunal Gosavi, who was from Pandharpur. He led from the front. He killed about 2 terrorists. He was martyred, and he was also awarded with Sena Medal gallantry. Then you had Major Moharkar. You had so many of them, that I would not remember everybody's name. Very recently, when we talk about, this, just about 2 weeks back, there was an encounter in Kashmir Valley where CO-21RR, Colonel Ashutosh led from the front, and he was martyred. Then you had Major Anurag, if I remember the name correctly. He was leading from the front and he was martyred, and 5 terrorists were killed in this kind of a thing. So this is the tradition of Indian Army. I'll give another example of Chhatrapati before I move over to the Indian Army. In Lal Mahal, which is located in Pune, Shahiste Khan had come there. So what Chhatrapati went for a commando raid. It was a commando raid in military parlance, or it was a surgical strike, because that word has become very famous these days. He went and attacked Shahiste Khan himself. Couldn't he have left it to some of his equally capable subordinates? No, he did not do it. He led from the front, and Shahiste Khan's army, numbering thousands, thereafter ran away back from where they came. And this kind of a policy was followed in the Marathas later. Bajirao Peshwe, he led from the front on the horses cavalry, and there was a time when the Maratha Samrajya had reached up to Atak, Peshawar, that is where they had reached. Now this is exactly the same thing happens in the army. If you study the Kargil war, Lieutenant Vijay Thapar, Captain Vikram Batra, famous for his statement, Ye Dil Mange, more, etc., are known. So Indian Army has a tradition from leading from the front, and this is exactly what happened. Here, the 2IC, second in command of the 16th Bihar, was leading. All his officers were there, and a command of all officers came. And similarly, the other people. So they fought with bare hands. Bravery was at its best. Courage was at its best. They used Stone Age tactics, and a very bloody war took place. 6-7 hours in the hours of darkness. Nobody knew what was happening. You were only attacking each other fiercely. When the morning arrived, what was the result? Then you realized in the morning that Indian Army, when the situation became clear because daylight came, there is no electricity there. I'm sure all of us know about it. So we found that we had lost one officer, that is Colonel Babu, the commanding officer of 16 Bihar, and 19 other soldiers. Okay, they were 1 or 2 soldiers were from 3 Field Regiment, from Artillery Regiment. Somebody was from most were from Bihar Regiment, but there were others from Mahar and Punjab and whatnot. Okay, there was a Punjab boy The Sikhs carry with them, that small dagger, kripan as it's called. With the kripan and with the talwar, he's supposed to have killed about 8 Chinese soldiers. And the Chinese death toll was at around 53. This has been confirmed from US intelligence. This has been confirmed from the helicopter flights of the Chinese, which evacuated themselves, certain eavesdropping on the Chinese communication, and so many other inputs. Okay. And the number of injured was very, very high, very, very high. The number is to the tune of about 90, 100, even more than that. This was fought in a very narrow area at the height of about 16,000 plus feet. At 16,000 feet, you get very tired. I'll talk more about these heights when I talk about the military aspect as they would take place in a conventional war. And what happens the next day? So the Chinese did not publicize their casualties. They said, we will not talk about it. We published, and our soldiers were given last right with full military honors. Some of the last rights you would have observed on the TV channels. But what happens? Two interesting things happened. One is Chinese asked for a flag meeting. They said, we will withdraw from the Galwan Valley and we'll go back to the position of 9th of May, which is where they were located before the war started, before the fight started. Okay. Now, why are they gone back? Not because of love or affection for the Indians, because Chinese understand a language of a force. They only understand this kind of a language, and not by diplomacy, not by talking nicely, not by talking in a very logical way. They don't understand logic. They understand this, when you speak to them from a position of the strength, so they understood. Secondly, and this is an important information which I'm sure all of you know, that the Chinese general of Tibet who masterminded this operation, he has been sacked. He has been removed from there. No army removes its general during midstream because it can create all kinds of problems. He was sacked because he thought that they will get a walkover. They will not be able to, the Indian army will run back, and they would have a moral ascendancy over this thing, and they will keep whatever area they have included. But this did not happen. So his appreciation of judging the psychology of an Indian soldier went completely wrong. And this is where you must understand that when we talk of warfare, warfare, there are any war, there are two facets. One is the soldier, and second is a weapon with which he fights the war. And it is said that the most important facet of a war is the soldier. It is the soldier's mind. It is the soldier's leadership, which is important, because at the end of the day, he decides whether you want to, fight the soldiers or not. Whether you want to fight or not. It is the psychology of armed forces. That is what they talk about. And there's a more than adequate research done on this. Some of you who may be interested in the psychological psychology of armed forces, please read a book written by an American general. It is called Men Under Fire, by General S.L.A. Marshall. He did a complete research on the Second World War, and he basically says what I've told you, that there's only one way to lead in a dangerous situation, that is leading from the front. Otherwise, it's a book available, the psychology of armed forces, or call it leading from the front, etc. Okay, so the Biharis fought very well, supported by the Mahar, supported by this, and you had the Galwan Valley incidents. And when a history of warfare, this war is written during, peacetime, when peace returns, this battle of Galwan will be ranked along with the Battle of Rezangla. Those of you who would have studied 62 war would just put the word Rezangla, Battle of Rezangla into Google search, and you will come to know what happened. There, 100 Komani soldiers fought the advancing Chinese at a place called Rezangla, ahead of Chushul airfield, and they fought so well that nobody knew what happened there, because the complete area was covered with snow. But 4 months later, when the snow melted, when the Indian Army soldiers went there, they found all the 100 soldiers of Komaunis in their trenches, in their bunkers, with their hands on the trigger. They were all dead. They had all gone away to the next world, but the Chinese were not able to penetrate any further. there. So Battle of Rezangla was the two Paramveer Chakras were ordered there. I'm sure when gallantry awards are given on 15th of August or 26th of January, you're going to see new heroes. So that much for the Galwan. I thought I must tell you about it. Now I will come down about the military aspects. I don't want to get into the more details. But before I proceed to the military aspect, I want to also tell you that remember, China is not only fighting with you at Ladakh, which is the military aspect. It is not only fighting a propaganda war with you, but it is fighting with you on various kinds of fronts. And in the military parlance, it is called a hybrid war. What is hybrid war? Hybrid war is there are various ways of fighting wars. So you utilize all the things together, and you fight this war 24 hours a day. Wars of yesteryears, says 47 war was fought for 6 months, 65 war was fought for 4 weeks, 71 war was fought for 4 weeks. But these days wars are continuing 365 days a year and 7 days a week and 24 hours a day. Now, what are the different kind of a war? One, of course, is the propaganda war. You give away a theme to say that Chinese are very strong. Do not touch them. Their economy is 3.5 times stronger. I'm sure the experts will talk about it. Their military power is so, they got 3,000 tanks, so don't fight with them. So what will the 3,000 tanks will do on the mountainous area? Nobody tells you. So propaganda war, psychological war, disinformation war, call it information war. And how is it fought? I'll talk about it when I talk about this topic through various media, such as the print media. You have the English language newspapers, you have the Marathi language newspapers, you have regional language newspapers, then you have the electronic media, the TV channels which give 24 hours news, and then you have social media, you have the Twitter, you have the Facebook, you have the YouTube, and there are n number of things through which it happens. And what is the aim? Aim is to defeat an army psychologically without fighting a war. Then you have another war called as the economic war. You economically subvert a nation. You like today, America and Europe are so dependent on Chinese goods that even if they want to boycott Chinese, and Donald Trump is fighting a trade war with China for the last 2-3 years, but you are still not able to reduce your dependency on China because the Americans and the Europeans have got so much used to this kind of dependence on China that they simply are not able to control Chinese, and therefore the Americans and this thing are keeping quiet. Okay, then you have what is called as the diplomatic war. In the diplomatic war, China does dadagiri karta. Like we wanted to declare Hafiz Saeed, who is a well-known terrorist of Lashkar-e-Toiba, as a world terrorist. If that had happened, everybody in the world would have banned him. We wanted to declare Pakistan as a nation supporting terrorism in the Financial Action Task Force, a United Nations body. पण त्यांनी ते करू दिलं नाही. ते आपला व्हेटो पॉवर वापरतात आणि आपल्याला असं काही ते कीप ऑन प्रोटेक्टिंग पाकिस्तान. आपल्याला ते न्यूक्लियर सप्लाय ग्रुप मध्ये येऊ देत नाहीत. आपल्याला ते आता WHO, वर्ल्ड हेल्थ ऑर्गनायझेशन, काय काम आहे त्यांचं काम आहे की म्हणजे look at the world health and issue warnings. Now, what does the World Health Organization do in this corona war which is going on? Let me speak for about 2 minutes on the biological war, which is a part of a hybrid war which China has launched against the whole world. Started off somewhere in India in the month of February, world other places in the month of January. Now this war started off somewhere in Wuhan. The interesting part is that this war did not spread into the nearer Chinese cities such as Shanghai, such as Beijing, and suddenly it was controlled, while it spread itself thousands of kilometers away in Europe, thousands of kilometers away in America, thousands of kilometers away in the Asian countries, including India. China stopped all the internal flights inside China, but the external flights outside world kept on going. And this one belt, one road, etc., all that thing that you hear of actually became a method of transmitting this virus all over the place, because thousands of Chinese and people from all countries, from Wuhan and from China, who were the carriers of corona, have come to various parts of the world, and there you have the whole world is affected. Remember, this world faced two great world wars, World War I and II, and the damage it suffered there were tremendous. Those of you who would have read the military history would know about it. But the damage which this Third World War, the biological war, which is caused to the whole world, is more than both the world wars put together. Okay, remember that. The kind of damage that USA suffered, the kind of damage that the Europeans have suffered. NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, a military alliance against communism, is more or less dead. Okay, so there is absolutely, I mean, as a military power, Europe, I don't know where is it. Okay. Now, next part is, this biological war. India, let's talk about India. We faced so many wars. 47 war, 62 war, 65 war, 71 war, 99 war, terrorism thereafter, Naxalism in central part of the country. All kinds of violence, internal and externally abated. You combine them together, our economy suffered more damage. So this is a biological war, third war, which is China's launched. The next part of it is the political war. Are they subverting our political system? Indian TV, you just look at it. But I will tell you only one thing about political war. I don't want to get into any controversy right now. But in the 70s or in the 80s, you had a nation called USSR, United Soviet Socialist Republic. Later, 10 years later, in the 90s, it broke into Russia and many satellite countries. There was their intelligence agency was KGB. Okay, now KGB did a lot of intelligence operation called as the political warfare. There was one agent of there called Mitrovin. Just put this word Mitrovin into the Google search. This person defected from USSR, ran away to Europe, was in hibernation, wrote a book called the Mitrovin Archives. This book is available on the internet. See what kind of an operation they did. I'm not too much again worried about what happened in America and other places, but there's a whole chapter on India in this book. He mentions names of Indian politicians to whom he paid money, the kind of operations they did. Please read it, and you will be surprised with the names that are there. Just yesterday or day before yesterday, the chief minister of Kerala says we should not, China is a friend, we should not, isolate China, etc. I will not talk more about political warfare more than that. You'll come to know more about it later. Okay, now one of the persons is writing that there's a movie also on this. Unluckily, I've not seen it, but I've read the whole book. But do read it. It's a very interesting book. Then you have the media war, more or less. Then you have a big data war. All this kind of technological devices China has intruded into our technological sector, and it is stealing data. And who would know it better than all of you who are settled abroad? You are so technological savvy. Whatever I do today, my mobile is my भाग्य रेषा, और इट इज माय म्हणजे पत्रिका आहे ती माझी, की ज्याच्यामध्ये माझं सगळं लिहिलेलं आहे. मी कोणाशी बोलतो, कोणाशी बोलत नाही, मी कुठे गेलो होतो, माझं जीपीएस मला ट्रॅक करतं, माझं म्हणजे माझा ऑडिओ कॅन बी ऍक्टिव्हेटेड, माय व्हिडिओ कॅन बी ऍक्टिव्हेटेड, आय कॅन बी स्टूप्ड अपॉन वगैरे वगैरे. ठीक आहे, तर हे सगळं आता होत आहे. आता मी तर एवढा इम्पॉर्टंट नाही, तर मला म्हणजे मी अनेक वेळा म्हटलं होतं की आपलं इन्स्टेड ऑफ कीपिंग इट ऑन द गुगल मीट, लेट अस कीप इट ऑन लेट्स से द चायनीज ऍप, so that they understand that we are talking ill of them, and it will be a good propaganda warfare against them. But chalo, you are talking on Google Meet and you are not talking on the Chinese platform. Okay, so you have the technological war, but this is all are taking place simultaneously. It's a big subject, but we all are doing a reasonable job. I can see some references being put there. I'm sure you can read it, and it will be a lesson for all of you, because you are all are technologically savvy. Now, very quickly, let me come down to the military aspect, because I have to stop after, I think by about 9, by 8:30, I must stop, So I will cover the military aspect. Now, very briefly, you must understand that this height of Ladakh is about 14,000 feet plus. There was a rumor, I'll combine the propaganda warfare along with the military warfare itself, that there was this thing that Chinese have rushed huge amount of army into Ladakh. Now, inducting huge army in Ladakh does not help, because there's a thing called acclimatization. If a soldier has to fight at the height of 14,000 or 16,000 feet, then he has to be acclimatized. Soldiers are first sent to 9,000 feet. There they acclimatize for about 6 days, in which they walk first, then they climb certain areas every day. The physical effort increases. Then you start carrying military loads, so your body gets acclimatized physically as well as mentally. On the seventh day, you are sent to 11,000 feet. Again, there you get acclimatized for about 7 days. Same thing is done there. Various kinds of physical and mental activities spread out in a scientific manner, or the doctors would will understand it very better. Okay, then you go to 13,000 feet, another 2,000 feet higher, and again you have what is called as acclimatization there. So only on the 22nd or 23rd day you can do something. Then some people started spreading rumors. Chinese has got 3,000 tanks. Now, Indo-China border is a mountainous area. Anybody who understands warfare, you cannot use tanks in this mountainous area at all. The only area where some tanks can be used is on the flat lands of Ladakh, and that too not more than 35, 40 tanks. And to face 25, 30 tanks of the Chinese, we have a whole brigade sitting there, 120 tanks plus armored personnel carriers, etc. So tanks are of no use. Then they say Chinese have got nuclear weapons. The nuclear weapons are weapons of political means. It is not an weapons for armed forces. The last time it was ever used was in 46. How are the nuclear wars used? Weapons are used. Not today, I can't talk about it today, but it is not a weapon which can be used in a conventional war. Then they say you have a lot of missiles there. Now missiles, they have a missile with 1,000 kilometers of range, one with 2,000, one with 3,000. They can cover the whole Indian mainland. But in a mountainous area, the efficiency of missiles is very little, because I don't want to get into the technical details, simply because technology doesn't work there. If you make an error of even 1 meter, the missile will go over the ridge and fall into the next valley. Okay, so there are problems. The GPS accuracy, you may have smart missiles, you may have GPS guided missiles, you may have heat-seeking missiles, but cold weather, change into humidity, these missiles are not all weather proof. The accuracy goes down. So there you are missiles. Then let's talk about the Chinese army. Their strength is hell of a lot. Now you must understand that very briefly, the Indo-China border can be divided into three parts. One is the border opposite Arunachal Pradesh and Sikkim. That is called as the eastern sector. There we have more than about 1.5 lakh of troops deployed there. Adequate troops to meet any kind of challenge there. Number one. The second sector is called the central sector, which is opposite the Himachal Pradesh and let's say area of Uttarakhand, also called as the Joshimath area. There again we have more than 60-70,000 troops there, adequate to take care of any number of Chinese who can be brought logistically in that area. Then you have the Ladakh sector, where the present standoff is taking place. There you have something like 70-80,000 troops. You have an armored brigade, you have a large amount of artillery, you have adequate troops to take care of whatever military action takes place there. So troops is not an issue. Indian army has got a lot of experience of war. The Chinese army does not have it. What was the last war the Chinese army fought? They fought a war in 1978, if I remember the years correctly, against Vietnam. And this war the Chinese lost against Vietnam. And the main Vietnamese army did not fight in this war. Only the border guards of the Chinese, of the Vietnamese fought in this war. They have fought no wars after this. But they are past masters of psychological war, propaganda warfare, about which I will speak in more details slightly few minutes from now. Then the Chinese soldier, Chinese soldier, they have a compulsory conscription there. That means every Chinese is supposed to join the army for 3 years. 1 year is spent on training, and 2 years they remain as a soldier, as a trained soldier. Thereafter they go away. Now please tell me, if you are going to leave army after, let us say after 2 years, how much of effort you would have in fighting the enemy? You would be more bothered about what you are going to do next. Okay, I'll just have a sip of water. Okay, so their heart into fighting is not much. They have a very little experience of warfare. As far as the Chinese soldiers are concerned, Chinese leadership is concerned, they are more of political animals. They get promoted not because of their professional things, but they get promoted by their linkages with the other with their political bosses. Okay, so there's a problem there. Now, Indian Army, that is not the case. Okay, then the next issue is the Indian Army is leading from the front, the kind of an experience that we have in fighting various wars, fighting in every year. I'm sure you know that we lose something like 250 to 350 soldiers to battle injuries, fighting the terrorists in Kashmir, fighting some kind of a terrorism in yeah, in some parts of Northeast, not so much there. But the LOC is, as far as LOC is concerned, it is highly active. Every day you hear about all kinds of weapons fired there. You must have heard just day before yesterday we lost a soldier from Maharashtra, and TV channels asked me to speak about him. We lost him. Okay, but remember one thing: if you lose a soldier, then obviously the kind of a damage that occurs to the Pakistanis is hell of a lot. Some of you who may be interested in how much damage the Pakistanis suffer, there are two Pakistani newspapers in English, Dawn and Nation. You may read it, and it will tell you as to what Indian Army is doing. But fair amount of damage they suffer. The Pakistanis are trying to reactivate terrorism in the Kashmir Valley. They've not been able to succeed because of very good border guarding by the Indian Army. The whole LOC turns into a battlefield at night time. The kind of weapons that are fired there, kind of firing that takes place, kind of encounters that take place, it's a battlefield. This kind of an experience the Chinese do not have. Now, the next issue is the geography. The geography is somewhat kind to us. And I'll talk about the geography. India today has a coastline of about 7,600 kilometers. No country can economically strangulate India by blocking our sea routes, because blocking 7,600 kilometers, is it possible? It is simply not possible. While as far as the China is concerned, they have a problem in terms of, Malacca corridor, Malacca Strait. Those of you have a look at the map of Malacca. This is a strait which is between Singapore and Indonesia. Almost 70% of the Chinese trade takes place from there. India is lucky; it has got two set of island territories. One is the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, which is located in the Bay of Bengal. See the South Nicobar Islands of ours. This Malacca state is barely 300 kilometers from there. If Indian Army starts throwing stones from South Nicobar Island, we can stop the Chinese, and 70 to 80% of their trade can be blocked. Okay, I'll talk very briefly about the Air Force, because they say Air Force, China has got so much of Air Force, etc. Remember, again, the Indian Air Force bases are located in the Northeast in places such as Bagdogra. I'm sure some of you would have visited Northeast when you come to India to meet relations, oblique, do a bit of tourism. You must visit the border areas and you must see where the Indian Army fights. You will realize as to how difficult the areas are. So the aerodromes or the air bases of Northeast, where are they located? They're located at Bagdogra, at Dibrugarh, at Chabua, at Guwahati, at Tezpur, etc. All these are at a mean sea level, at the sea level. The efficiency of an Air Force plane is 100% when an aeroplane's fighter aircraft take up from a height at mean sea level. While the Chinese, they can carry 100% of their complete load. Okay, now the Chinese Air Force takes away from Tibetan mainland if they are to fight with India. What is the height of the Tibetan mainland? 16,000 feet, 14,000 feet. The mechanical efficiency goes down there by almost about 50 to 60%. Instead of carrying 1,000 kg of the load, weapon loads, you will carry barely 400. So, okay, so this is a kind of a thing that takes place, So, I've talked about the war experience, I talked about the leadership, I talked about the weapon system, I talked about so many things. So I'll talk remember, we have adequate force to take care of the Chinese. Some people get worried that our weapons may not be as modern. Don't worry. General Malik, who was the army chief during the Kargil war, his famous statement is there: "We will fight with what we have, and we will fight well." The Indian soldier will always fight well with whatever weapons he has, but that doesn't mean that we should not modernize. That does not mean that we should not get high technology into us, but that will be a long-term affair. So I'll talk now, since I can see only five minutes are remaining by my clock. For me to stop talking, I'll quickly come on to the propaganda warfare, or the psychological warfare, or the disinformation war. What is the purpose of this warfare? The purpose is to tell the country that you are no good, you are economically weaker, and you better give up. You're militarily weaker, you better give up and listen to what we are saying. Okay, and who are the targets of the propaganda warfare? I can say there are four major, targets. One is the government of India. They would tell the government of India that you please bend up on your knees and start negotiating with us. Well, they have failed in this. Government of India is carrying out no negotiations. The negotiations are done only by the Indian Army. So one arrow has been wasted. Second target is the Indian Army. Now they want to tell you we have so many weapons, we are so good, etc. But it has made no difference to the Indian Army. The Galwan fight wouldn't have taken place should Indian Army's morale would have gone down. The third part is the Indian media. Now there are certain subverted individuals in the Indian media, electronic media, or this. I don't want to name them, but you can see them talking on this. There are about 200-300 such subverted people who talk the Chinese language and give a viewpoint, and they fight what is called as a narrative warfare. They try and tell you anything, they convert and say, no, the Chinese are winning. No, the Chinese are not winning. We have definitely won round number one as far as the military aspects are concerned. Okay, but there are common people who really get worried. Like one of my friends rang up, "Arey Hemant, you didn't tell me Pangyang So Lake is gone." I said, "Who the hell has told you this yet?" He said, "No, I was listening to Pakistani TV." I said, "Why do you want to listen to the Pakistani TV?" Unfortunately, the problem today is in the information war, people think that the standoff at Ladakh is more like a T20 cricket match. I'm sure you're not watching T20 cricket sitting in other countries. They want a ball commentary. The Chinese soldier sneezed now. An Indian soldier did this. Ball by ball commentary is not possible in a war. Wars are fought in a secretive manner, because if you give what you are doing, then the enemy will come to know. I'll give you two very straight, simple examples for you to understand why secrecy is important. In the Kargil war, we had a very famous, TV anchor, famous or infamous. I leave it to you to decide. What did she or he do? She went to the front area at a place called Dras, and she was giving a thing from there that I am at so and so place. Well, yes, one of you has written down the name. You have hit the nail on the head. I grant you that straight away. I didn't want to use names at all, because why should you talk of names? They're well known. So she said, "I am here," and straight away the counter bombardment artillery of the Pakistan army started firing, and the Indian soldiers, a lot of Indian soldiers were lost. The soldiers got killed because of the counter bombardment which took place. This is because her mobile was picked up. Then you had the 26/11 kind of an attack, where some TV channels started giving ball by ball commentary. Now they're in Taj. Now the National Security Guard has arrived. Now this, now that. Some of you who have asked questions, some of you amongst you only are giving replies to the questions. I'm happy about it. You all are well informed. And the Pakistani major who was handling the 10 terrorists who had entered the city of Mumbai was using this information to guide his soldiers and telling them what to do next. So information like this cannot be given. You will always be behind. And in the army, we say that no news is a good news. You will be told what you need to know, and this is what you need to, if something is required to be known, it will be told to you. So media warfare has become a very big part. Unfortunately, that is where some of the mistrust, miscommunication is taking place. A lot of people say, no, but tell me, why have they not gone to the Pangyang So Lake? People are talking as if they have seen Pangangso Lake is right next to them. Everybody has a Google map. So they say, ki, I saw Finger area, I saw Pangangso Lake, and I saw this and I saw that. And people are, remember one thing, the reporting of this war is taking place from where? Where is the media? The action is taking place on the LOC, LAC, line of actual control. While the nearest media is at Leh. Leh is about 200 kilometers as the crow flies from the LAC. So they are all sitting there and giving reporting. Some of you who would have read our two big granthas like Ramayana and Mahabharata. In Mahabharata, you had Sanjay. Sanjay is a person who saw the war with his own eyes. If you had a Sanjay kind of Anvani eyes, well, you can see the war, but well, that kind of a thing doesn't exist. So this is a kind of a war. Blind people are talking about it, and there are experts who are talking about it, who have never ever visited Ladakh, who have never fought. There are some retired, unfortunately, army officers who have never served there. One of the biggest experts, I don't want to name them, the highest height he ever climbed in his life was the turret of his tank. A tank height is roughly about 3.5 feet. That is the highest height he ever climbed in his life, and he passes off as an expert on the TV channels. I don't want to name him. Okay, so such kind of experts are creating all kinds of problems, and that is the whole issue. So propaganda warfare, do not fall a victim to it, and I can go on and on. Please have a faith in your Indian Army, your armed forces. Our leadership is reasonably competent. We are doing a reasonable job of it, but don't think that this is going to get over fast, because I mentioned to you that there are a large number of facets of this, war. Call it the hybrid war, which is going to continue for some time. But don't worry, we are doing a reasonable job of it. This is the kind of a confidence that I want to give you. I can talk and talk, but I just talk for only 5 seconds and try to steal thunder from the next speaker. And that is, the economic war. Let me tell you, and I will maybe a minute try and tell you as to what you people can do sitting away many kilometers away from India. What can the non-resident Indians can do, etc. You can do a lot sitting away from India. You can invest here. You can mentor people here. You can induct new technologies. There are programs which are starting where the Indian community in USA, in let's say all over Europe, as well as a very well-performing community. I am told that 30% of the scientists in NASA are Indians. Most of the CEOs of very big companies like Google and all are Indians, etc. So they are technologically very well versed. They are done a very good job of doing good things. They can act as pressure groups, and I will give you one example. In the United Kingdom elections, they have two parties there, the Conservative and the Labour. The Labour said they started talking about they wanted to win the votes of the Muslim community there. So they said Article 370, National Register of Citizens, etc., etc., about which they have no concern. That's all Indian things. They said when you come into power, we will try and tell India, please remove all this. Now, how can a British party poke their nose into the affairs of India? But they did it. The Indian community got there, called as the Friends of India. They united and they put pressure there. All of them voted for the Conservatives, and the history is that the Labour lost the war. Okay. Today, some of you who may be in America, just for your information, day before yesterday, one of the Democratic candidates who is going to fight Mr. Donald Trump, what has he said, Mr. Biden? He says he's talked about exactly the Pakistani language. So now I take it, you know what to do with him. I'm not canvassing for Donald Trump. He's a very unpredictable person. But well, among the choices that you have, this will be with the lesser losses. Okay. So there's a lot which you people can do, because when I was trying to say, tell people as to what you can do, my wife pitched in. Let me see if I can tell her what she said. He says ki mera juta hai Japani, meri patlun Englishstani, सर पे लाल टोपी रूसी पर दिल है हिंदुस्तानी. That famous song which Raj Kapoor has said, I think, Mera Dil Hai Hindustani. You may be thousands of kilometers away from India, but there's a lot you can do. The 3 crore community which is outside India, in olden days it was called as a brain drain. Please tell me when I should stop, otherwise Sanjay ji, please don't leave the meeting, otherwise there'll be a stone throwing in your studio. I think I must stop after within about next 2 minutes because I cannot steal the thunder from the next speaker. Okay, because there has to be a limit as to how much you can bear. This is, in fact, when I go to the colleges, they say, tell me कि सर थोड़ा जल्दी जल्दी बात कर लो, आप बहुत ज्यादा बात करते हो, हमारे बच्चों को अच्छा नहीं लगता, उनको नींद आ जाती है. So well, anyway, colleges here, but this kind of a thing, who lives, who is listening to you is entirely your choice. I can see some people living, their names are being flashed, so I suppose they've had enough. Okay, okay. Now I'll just stop in next about 2 minutes. I think I may be getting a call, but Udayji, I'm definitely stopping in next 2 minutes. So all that I will say now is we are doing a good job. There's an economic boycott of Chinese you got to do. This is one area in which we are lagging completely behind. Boycott the Chinese goods. We are doing a big job. I could have spoken about it, but purely lack of time, one cannot talk about it. And I think you can do something similar there, because the Chinese, let's say the economic warfare against India, economic subversion of India, same subversion, same economic war has taken place against Europe, taken place. Today, everything that America wants is manufactured in China. Now look at it, what kind of a problem there, So, stop the Chinese goods coming. It's not going to be easy, but it must, they must understand this is what it is. And also, doing a propaganda warfare against China, is it possible? Unfortunately, there is no social media of China which you can penetrate. There is no newspaper of theirs you can penetrate. So how do you do? But the good information is that there are a lot of Chinese who leave China and come into various parts of the world. Well, that is where they are, you can carry out a psychological war against them. Please tell them, one China policy, what happens? The problem is today the number of girls there is so less that the Chinese youth don't have girls left to marry. Then what is the Chinese army good at? They are the ones who are carrying out surveillance in Tibet. They are the ones who are, carrying out operations in Xinjiang, which is a part of China. They are keeping all the manner under watch. And if they are good at one thing, they are good at video warfare. They are good at psychological warfare. But fighting is something they haven't shown they are too much of proficiency in that. Chinese, I hope the Chinese know that the China today spends more money on internal security apparatus than on external security. Okay, that means they spend more money trying to put their own people down than external threats like, let's say, India or Japan or anybody else. It doesn't happen in India. India, our budget on the external security is about 3.5 times bigger than the internal security budget. That is the budget spent on police and paramilitary forces and CAPF, which are responsible for the internal security. So there is a vast things which are happening in China. There are a lot of problems. So I will now end up in saying that China is not 7.5 feet tall. China में बहुत बड़ी problems है. China में बहुत कुछ होने वाला है. तो मैं अभी रुकने वाला हूँ. मेरे ख्याल से यही शायद मुझे एक कॉल नजर आ रही है. तो मी आता थांबतो. चीन सुद्धा 7.5 feet नाही. त्यांना नक्कीच वेगवेगळे प्रॉब्लेम्स आहेत. आपण तिबेट इंडिपेंडेंट होऊ शकतो का? हाँगकाँग मध्ये काय चाललेलं आहे, तैवान मध्ये काय होतं आहे, सगळं जग त्यांच्या विरुद्ध आहे. आज चीनला कोणी मित्र शिल्लक राहिलेला नाही. हे सगळे वेगवेगळे विषय पुन्हा कधी आपण भेटलो तर त्यावरती आपण बोलू शकतो. पण मला वाटतं मी आता इथे थांबतो. मी आपल्या सगळ्यांचा आभारी आहे की आपण मला इतका वेळ दिला. फक्त मी आपल्याला एवढंच सांगतो की इंडियन आर्मीवरती विश्वास ठेवा आणि नक्कीच ते चांगलं काम तिथे करतायत. मी सोशल मीडियावरती बऱ्यापैकी ऍक्टिव्ह आहे. माझा ब्लॉग आहे, माझे अनेक व्हिडिओज तिथे आहेत. मी लिंक तुम्हाला ती पाठवीन, कारण 1 तासामध्ये आपण किती बोलणार. तर ते तुम्हाला अनेक गोष्टी त्यात तुम्हाला तिथे बघता येईल. त्या लिंक्स जरूर शेअर करा, त्यांना लाईक करा वगैरे वगैरे. आणि आता शेवटचं एक वाक्य, तुम्ही मला इतक्या वेळ ऐकलं. तुम्ही सुद्धा देशाच्या बाहेर असलेले इंडियन्स, दिल है हिंदुस्तानी या लढाईमध्ये आपल्या देशाला नक्कीच मदत करू शकता. ती तुम्ही कराल अशी मला खात्री आहे. आणि मी इथेच थांबतो. जय हिंद. ऑर्गनायझर्सला विनंती आहे की